Hello, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs, where I speak to bands and musicians about how they've been able to make their art, more or less, their full-time thing. This week I speak to Lia from the Mysterines, whose debut album, Reeling, comes out this Friday. It's an absolute banger. You'd be silly not to go and check it out. This episode is supported by 2000 Trees Festival, taking place from the 6th to the 9th of July in Cheltenham this year, just a few hours away from London, where Idols, Jimmy Eat World, Thrice and Turnstile are all headlining. So many great bands. They've just announced 7 new bands, including Creeper and The Regrets, and that's joining the already stacked lineup, including Knocked Loose, The Get Up Kids, The Chats, Pigs, Kneecap. There's just so many. If there's one independent UK rock festival you should go to this year, it's 2000 Trees. And if you know you're going, but you haven't got your ticket yet, you can use the voucher code 101POD at checkout to get 10% off. That's nearly 20 quid you could be spending elsewhere at the festival. To get your ticket, just go to 2000treesfestival.co.uk and find your way from there. 101POD, 10% off. You can't really go wrong. You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. This is Lia from the Mysterines. Go well.
I left school after my GCSEs, so I was 16, I left school, and then I went to college for like 3 months, and then got kicked out / left. It was like a mutual decision between me and the whoever it was I was speaking to. I can't even remember, to be honest, but I didn't enjoy high school. I did actually enjoy college when I was there, but I had to leave because I was going on tour, the first tour that we did with Miles Kane. So I had to leave because they weren't going to allow me to go, basically, and said I had to do all my schoolwork on tour, and I was just like, that's just not going to happen. Like when I'm getting like free ale every night, like it's definitely not going to happen. So yeah, I left, and that was the last time I was in school. I think that was like 2017, which is weird because all the lads went to uni and stuff, so they were sort of in school for a lot longer than I was, and I would still call it school when they'd call it like uni and college, but because I was like so used to being in school, like I still like referred to it as that for years, which I found quite funny.
I mean, it's easy to look back on it now and be like, yeah, you know, you left college because you were going on tour with Miles Kane, and how much of a celebration. I mean, at the time, was it like that? At the time, was it actually a bit more complicated and a bit more to think about?
I don't think it was, because my parents are so supportive of the career that I'd chosen, and you know, I'd done really well academically in my exams, and I probably would have continued to if I stayed in school. So it was never sort of like, oh, I haven't got my grades, like what if this falls through? I think they were pretty confident that if it did fall through, I could go back and sort of, you know, work hard to achieve, you know, something academic or whatever. So it wasn't that complicated. I think I remember texting my mum that I'd been kicked out, and she sent loads of like angry faces or something like that. I can't remember. It was something along those lines. But yeah, they were pretty supportive, and she didn't know I'd been offered the Miles Kane tour at that point, so I just said, "Oh, I've been kicked out," and then I obviously explained to her when I came home. But
that's a good political move on your side.
Yeah,
you get the anger out, and then you make them realize it's not so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's someone with experience. That is
quick thinking. Yeah. I think it's so weird for me because I sort of started the band before I was like old enough to be able to get a job. So I never went in with the sort of idea of monetary struggle, if you know what I mean, because I was too young to understand what that could potentially be like when I was financially independent. So I sort of experienced that probably in the like past 2 years of doing the band, like up until the recording of the album and stuff. So it sort of just like hit me almost, and I was like, oh shit, I'm an adult now. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I've got a sort of like, but I wasn't able to get a job because of how busy the band is and things. So I guess I've only really realised the struggle of that in the past few years. Yeah, it is weird because you don't really go into music for the finance or the money anyway. But yeah, I suppose when you are being paid like less than 50 quid, it is a bit of a, it becomes a struggle in the end.
Because you started playing so long ago, do you think by the time you were, what, like 18, 19, that you kind of had that identity as a player, as a musician, as a lyricist, as a songwriter?
I guess so, but I also felt like a lot of my teenage years had sort of been lost in a way to playing shows constantly. So it was sort of like I knew who I was in terms of what career I wanted to do, but I could, because I spent so much time doing that, I sort of didn't have time for myself, you know what I mean? And that's a constant like struggle being in a band anyway. That's something that I assume not, you know, the rest of the band face as well as me. But I guess that is like the weird balance of an artist, that they're sort of the people that never really know who they are, but they're constantly projecting these characters and art constantly. And maybe it's a way of like self-discovery. You could get pretty like deep on it, I suppose. But yeah.
I mean, they don't have to be, but it's going to work better if you've got a strong projection of who you are. You know, you can tell these people, this is what I'm into, this is what I'm about, this is my message.
Yeah.
Are you still discovering yourself during that?
100%. I think, you know, character portrayal in lyrics and stuff is probably a big way of escapism sometimes, to try and forget that you have to be personal in your writing sometimes. But when you do have to be, or when you are confronted with that and you don't even realize you're doing it, you're sort of a bit shocked about something that you haven't processed because you've been so busy, distracted by everything else. But yeah, it is pretty weird. I mean, it's something I'm still trying to figure out. And obviously, like, I'm only 21 as well. So I guess, like, do you know who you are when you're 21? But also you have to project yourself to, you know, an audience of people and fans who expect you to know who you are. So it's, I don't know. I don't even have the answer. I just go along with it.
People are going to feed off your confidence to be confident in themselves.
Yeah, I guess so. But then I always think like it's not my job to make them feel that way. Like all I've ever wanted to do is write songs and put songs out, and my job is that for that, and it's not to be, you know, a guide in any way. But people will expect that from you, nevertheless. You know, I guess what you do.
That's going to be a lesson that you're learning, you have learned, you will keep on learning a lot quicker than a lot of people in their lives.
No, 100%. Yeah, you've got to learn how to sort of process things quickly before they become an issue. It is weird when you tap into that side of yourself as well. I think I'm the sort of person that doesn't realize they need to talk about something, so it all like builds up, and then one day I'm like, oh, maybe I should have acknowledged that part of myself. I think I just try and acknowledge the least so I can be as productive, which is like so stupid that we have to do that nowadays because of how demanding the industry is, and you know how much you're expected to be available constantly. You sort of don't get time to think about it. But I guess I do have, I mean, I do talk about it quite openly. I am now.
playing music and constantly having that open pathway to speak to your fans and for your fans to reach out to you.
Yeah, I always think I'm pretty terrible at that though. Like I always feel like I never know what to say and I just don't respond to them. And it's not because like I don't want to talk to them. I get like super overwhelmed, you know what I mean? Because I'm just like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's constantly being able to be contacted is the thing that freaks me out the most. I prefer to speak to people in like person anyway, or like this, like face to face. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird sort of point in the industry, especially since lockdown, because you know, social media is such a big part of your career now. It's so demanding, and it's something that doesn't stop. Like social media never stops. It's alive 24/7. So, and you're expected to just sort of be present 24/7 as well. So if you do sort of shut your phone off, people like think you've gone like AWOL. You know what I mean? It's crazy.
You're growing publicly. Like, you think so many artists can kind of grow behind doors maybe, but you find yourself in a position where you're out in the open. Because you're growing. You must be learning things, especially through lockdown and after lockdown, when it's kind of been blowing up for you. The album is looming.
All these things are happening around us in the band, but like us four just feel we feel exactly the same. You know what I mean? So I'm still with like all of my old friends and like hang around with the same people and like do the same things. And like they even like sometimes they get a bit like, I don't know. Sometimes I remember coming back from somewhere like after I'd lived there for a while, and all my friends like thought I was going to come back with this like massive ego, and I was just exactly the same. And they were pretty shocked because they were like, "Aren't you just like caught up in everything that's happening?" Because they were like, "I would be if it was them." And I was just like, honestly, like I just try and not acknowledge it because it freaks me out. But yeah, it is weird, I guess, as you say, growing publicly. I guess I've never really thought about it that way, but I suppose it is. Yeah, no one can really do that behind closed doors anymore, can they? You sort of, yeah, it is weird. I'm the worst person to speak to about it. I freak out.
I deactivated my Facebook last year because I thought there's just too many photos of 60, fucking 15-year-old me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want that. I don't want my future employers to see that. I don't want, it's all those people who have access to it. They're like, totally fine, me and my friends seeing it, but nah, I don't want that to be.
Yeah. It is weird when you try and erase your past as well. It's proper like 1984.
Were you writing lyrics at a young age? Were you writing, prose, stories?
Yeah, I started writing when I was like 8 years old, I'd say. And I used to write lots of stories and like poems, and I'd like be like I'd enter these all like poetry competitions, and like I was in like the English club in school.
Yes.
It was weird though because I was never sort of like judged for it amongst my friends. I had a pretty big group of friends. I think they just let me crack on with it, to be honest. I think they just thought I was a little bit eccentric compared to them, even though I wouldn't say that myself. But I think they just indulge in the weirdness, to be honest. But yeah, I've always done it, and then I started writing lyrics like when I was like 11 when I started learning guitar.
That's such a young age to be writing poetry, to be writing lyrics.
I was obsessed with it. I loved Roald Dahl, and I loved Spike Milligan.
Do you know what I quite often think about in Boy, where he goes to the doctors, and I don't know if he mentions if there's anything that's like he's got any like pains or anything like that in his mouth, and the doctor puts like a red hot metal bar up his gums, it sounds like,
Yeah,
and all this flesh gushes out of his mouth, and he had like a. Do you remember that?
Boy's the true story, isn't it? Like that's about his childhood. Yeah. That I do remember that bit actually. That was one of the first ones I read, I think. The never-ending story always like sticks with me. I'll be sat there and I'll like start like recollecting scenes from it and just get really upset. It's a bit of a trippy film actually for like kids to watch, but
Magic Roundabout style.
Yeah, exactly. That exact thing.
Did you kind of meet someone then in those early years where it was, someone took an interest in you because they realized you had something and they wanted to work together? What's your story with, meeting people and then working with them?
Well, when I was about 13, I went to an open mic like thing, and it was the first one I'd ever done. And Alf Skelly, who is James Skelly's brother, was at the open mic gig, and I had no idea that his girlfriend ran it. And I just sort of got up and like played all my own songs. And then from then onwards, he just sort of mentored me from that age.
Right.
And like would teach me guitar parts. I would go around to their flat, Neve and Alf's flat, and he would show me films and make me like take films home and like watch them and give me books to read and make me Spotify playlists or whatever, give me records. And he just did that for years, and then he managed us up until about last January. yeah, Alf was great. He was just like, I suppose he just helped me completely develop into and figure out what I wanted to do with the Mysterines. But yeah, that I was about 13 then. Yeah, he would just give me loads of shit to do basically, and I didn't like. I sort of hated school, and I didn't really want to do that anymore. And he just encouraged me to do so much creative activities.
Was there a level of confidence that came with being in, the chorals kind of world?
I don't I don't think so. Like weirdly not. Like I was probably more intimidated than anything because I was, surrounded by these people who'd done it for years and they were judging my writing and my creativity with the mindset of something they've done for years. Whereas, I was only like 14, 15 and it's like my first stuff. So for them it was like they've got a well-trained mind in order to like judge these things, whereas it was like pretty early stages for me. So I was probably quite intimidated for a while, to be honest. But I guess I felt like I was moving forward in my career because I was sort of with these people, I guess.
You can learn a lot quickly. It's like if you play
Yeah,
sports or go skateboarding with people who are better, if you can get on a level, you're going to improve so much.
you've got to learn how to swim quite fast in the deep end, or you'll sink. Yeah, that's what I learned. And they were pretty, they were Jay especially, he was pretty honest with me when I was like a kid and stuff. He would give like pretty brutal advice that would like stick with me, and I suppose it sort of has. But I suppose a lot of people wouldn't agree with like doing that, but it's the way I worked best, I think. Yeah, looking back, I think it was like pretty intense for like a 15-year-old to like, be given that situation, but it was good. Like it paid off. It was sort of like I was their like prodigy child. You know what I mean? It was crazy.
So how would it work? You'd make demos and sit around and listen with James and Alf and other choral members or their mates?
I'd write songs, send them to Alf. He would say practice it in the practice room. They gave me the practice space for free for years, and I was super grateful for that because I wouldn't have been able to afford that when I was that age, and it's so difficult for young bands to be able to find anywhere to practice. Like we've only just found somewhere to practice. You know what I mean? Like it's mad, but that's one thing that will always like stick with me with that what they offered me in that situation. But yeah, I'd write songs and then practice them, show them to Alf, demo them, and then Jay would listen to them and I suppose give his feedback. And then that sort of happened for a few years until he thought I'd written something that was worth putting out and strong enough and, relevant enough to who I was. And I think, yeah, that was Hormone, I think. And I was like 16 when we recorded that. Yeah, but that happened for like a few years. There was lots of songs before that were just like that wasn't good enough, or you know what I mean. But it spurred me on to write better stuff.
Did you know you had something with Hormone?
I think the difference with Hormone was that um, I'd sort of grown into myself a bit more and grown into my influences and sort of knew the direction of where I wanted to go better. I mean, I hate that song now, but yeah, I suppose it's difficult for me to speak about because it's so long ago. Maybe I did think I had something. I must have done, otherwise I wouldn't have. I wouldn't have done it. But yeah, I think the beauty of those moments are the fact that I was so young and there was just like this relentless energy and just a lack of understanding that caused so much like chaos, I guess, but good chaos. Like I don't know, like a crazy kid at like a christening or something.
I mean, that's how you find new things, right? By breaking the rules. And I
Uh-huh.
suppose sort of an element of not knowing the rules, you're going to be breaking them.
Yeah, exactly. The first place I moved into, that was in the area that I grew up in New Brighton, and the landlord was like fucking great. Like he didn't ask for anything like legal, like no documents at all. Like looking back, like I mean, yeah, I don't know how he got away with that, to be honest, but it was good. It was really good. All I had to do was pay £500 deposit, and then I didn't pay for any internet or like water or electricity. And then when I left, I didn't even give the keys back because I lost them. He didn't even charge me for them. He just loved Pink Floyd, and he loved the fact that I love music, and like he would just come and speak to me, and he would tell me the same like Pink Floyd story like every day, and I'd have to pretend like I'd never heard it. It was like when he went to go and watch them one time, and maybe it's the fact that I coped with the Pink Floyd story. Maybe it was a test. Yeah,
You
no,
found a friend in you, a
yeah,
patient friend.
yeah, no, he was great. That was in lockdown. I lived on my own, but I really enjoyed it. I made friends with like all the neighbors in the household, and it was sort of like the range of people that were there. Yeah, it was hard not to find some sort of story going on like every day, like within the household, because everyone had their own space in their own room. But we had a communal garden, and because it was like summer and lockdown, everyone would go outside. So I met a few characters in that place. But it was enjoyable, like it was really fun. I loved sort of like discovering people like alone in lockdown. And I was writing the album at that point as well. So that was pretty fun. I've still got them all on Facebook actually. Yeah.
Living alone, you must have had, a lot of time to write.
It's good to take yourself into that space, and I sort of knew that I needed to do that for the record. But obviously I didn't know that lockdown was going to happen. I didn't realize how isolated it could have been. I didn't feel so isolated though because of what I said about like the house I was living in and the garden and stuff. And I would go out like all the time, like not against the rules. I go for like walks and stuff like all the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I lived like I lived like right by the prom, so I would just sort of like walk like really early in the morning and stuff, which was really nice. And then I'd like write in the daytime. I got a lot of writing done when I was on my own.
Any of those character neighbors, are they characters that have ended up on Reeling?
When I think about it, like I was thinking about it when I was talking about it then, I was like, have I accidentally written about like Dawn who lived next door to me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the abstract nature of the whole situation, I guess, is sort of projected into the record. There was some moments I processed from the past that writing helped me deal with, and there was like some like new moments that I didn't know how to deal with, and I was on my own. You know what I mean? So you sort of get to know yourself quite well, but also become so distant from yourself when you're writing in a way, because you've got to take yourself to a different, headspace. I don't think I could even explain it now because it was such a weird time. Not even just for myself, just for the whole world and history and stuff. But I drank a lot of whiskey.
Drank a lot of whiskey.
Yeah, Jameson's.
Have you kept the habit up?
No, definitely not. Yeah, I can't even like smell Jameson's anymore without just thinking about like the first lockdown.
If you were off for a year or 2 years, whatever it may be, between records, you and the band were like, okay, look, we're going to chill out for a bit, live life a different way for a little bit.
I'd probably join a circus, to be honest, and just go all out. Be a fire eater or like a tightrope walker or something.
Go even harder on the touring schedule.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're both pretty similar anyway, so I guess I'd just be moving pretty efficiently in the career sense. Yeah, I'd join a circus.
Brilliant. You can go to school for that. You can go to college for that.
Yeah, I did feel like that's what my school was like, to be honest. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That's probably what I'd do.
Lia, thanks so much for being up for this.
Yeah,
the album
thank
sounds
you so much.
Totally wicked.
Oh, I'm glad you like it. But I just hope everyone finds something they can relate to in the record and connect with. I think that's all any writer ever really wants to do, is to form some sort of connection between what they've created and someone else. So I hope we get to do that. That's the aim, that people enjoy the music and stick it on whenever they're with their friends or getting fucked or feeling like shit or whatever. I think that's the goal.
So there was Lia from the Mysterines. Their debut album, Reeling, is out this Friday, and they're going on tour all across the UK later this month with a huge show on April the 1st in London at the Electric Ballroom. See you next week with an episode with Chris Wallard of Hot Water Music. See you then.
I've been working all day for me mate on the side, running around like a blue-ass fly. I've been working all day for me mate. Every bleeding minute I've been on the go, up and down the ladder like a fiddler's elbow. I've been working all day for me mate.
This is a Mighty Moon Media podcast.